You're listening to the Consistent Briefing Show podcast on Anchor FM.
Alrighty. Welcome back to another edition of the Consistent Briefing podcast. My name is Jason Bat, and I will be your host for today's podcast. It is currently now the 10th of April, 2020. Good Friday it is today. But it's a Good Friday that we're having indoors. We're not allowed to be with our families. We have to abide to the social distancing laws that's in place, and we understand why. I understand, and a lot of us that are watching this podcast now, we all understand why. It's something that's not happening in South Africa alone. It's happening all over the world. It's a global pandemic. By all means, yes, it's needed. We need to flatten that curve that we're seeing, that everyone's talking about. For 3 weeks now, I haven't been doing a podcast, and I haven't been myself. It's taken a toll on me emotionally. I've had my stress related issues, and it was a concern, but I managed to pick myself out of it, and that's probably why I'm having this podcast. This podcast is, we're not PhDs. We don't have degrees in psychology and a psychiatrist. We're not that. So that's the reason for this podcast today. I want to speak to a normal person, an average Joe, and find out how Skye deals with, how Skye is dealing with this pandemic on his own terms, on his own way of handling stress and emotional concerns. And it is a concern. But we can deal with it. We just need to find that way. There's a word I use, mind over matter. But a lot of us can't. I'm hoping that the messages that we try to bring out yet in this podcast is the willingness. And I've got a little what's a little intro here that I typed at. Where is it now? People may be sick with the virus for 1 to 14 days before developing symptoms. The most common symptoms of coronavirus disease, COVID-19, are fever, tiredness, and dry cough. Most people, about 80%, recover from the disease without needing special treatment. More rarely, the disease can be serious and even fatal. Older people and people with other medical conditions such as asthma, diabetes, or heart disease may be more vulnerable to becoming severely ill. This is a data and information that has been made available to us. My question here is, can we really blame people for the different types of stress-related and emotional roller coaster ups and downs we are experiencing? No, we can't. The difference is in the willingness to take in new information to curb these emotional roller coaster ups and downs. So that's my message. So let's get into the podcast with Skye. In the podcast I spoke about a little bit of emotional that I had right when I had to the shopping center that I work at, where we gave out food parcels to my car gods. It was hard. It was hard on me, and it took me some time to get over that. Because car gods and a lot of other people that they live from hand to mouth, and they live on daily takings, or street vendors. The old cat there that's cutting hair at the train station, they're not getting the income anymore. So I can just imagine the trauma and the stress and everything else that they're going through at the moment, and I wish them well. And we will get through this, guys. We will get through this, and I just hope this is a learning curve for all of us, that we need to take the precautions. We have to take the necessary precautions. And yeah, I'm an essential worker, and I mentioned it in the podcast. I know the seriousness and the riskiness of it, and I take my hat off to every single essential worker out there, because me being in the security industry, I'm trying to still do my job and keep customers safe and let them feel safe. And to everybody else working in Pick and Pays, Checkers, your spas and that, hats off, guys. Hats off. You guys are all doing a brilliant job. Keep it up. And know that we will get through this. We will get through this. I'm confident. I'm positive. The stats and the data that's available, looking good. Hopefully we can just flatten this curve. We've got another 2 weeks extended to our lockdown. Yeah, let me get into the podcast, and we'll take it from there. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Sky, how are you, man? Are you good?
Greetings.
Greetings from far and beyond.
Greeting from beyond the keyboard. Yeah.
Beyond the keyboard. Yeah.
I'm pretty good. Not much has changed for me in my sort of daily routine. I work from home, and I'm not a big go outer. My entertainment is the internet.
Yeah, of course, and we're busy practicing the social distancing here. So,
which I'm pretty good at.
Not that I have any of my guests to come to my house anyway, but yeah, if we do, we're not allowed to, because then we're breaking the law.
Yeah, you got to be careful of that. Even now, I've got, I think, 4 boxes of cigarettes left. So, as much as I support the lockdown, it's soon going to be time where I'm going to change my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think that's why I want to have this podcast. Emotionally, people, how they're handling this lockdown, it's crazy. But before we get into it, give the listeners and the viewers out there a quick shout out who you are. Small intro.
I am, I guess, Bob Average. Joe's so overused, I decided to go with Bob. Except that I don't fit into the system, really. I work from home. I've never had a 9 to 5. I've done all kinds of weird jobs, worked on cruise ships, worked as DJ. I'm in IT. I do web development, video work, design stuff. So pretty much never really been in or part of the system, other than the fact that I have an ID book and a bank account, and I do.
So yeah,
that.
So we just average Joes, yeah. We don't have any PhDs or anything like that.
No. I'm not qualified to have any of the opinions that I have, but fuck it, I have them anyway.
Of course, yes. I mean, we all, freedom of speech is still practiced, I'm sure. Even with this disaster act going on, I mean, I'm sure we still got freedom of speech.
Absolutely, but where I differ from most people on that particular point is that I differentiate between what's untrue and what's not.
Yeah.
And you only have the freedom to spread what's true. You don't have freedom to lie.
Yeah, true.
So if you purposefully, I mean, the ignorance comes into play here. If you're saying something that you believe is true, you can't be prosecuted for it. You could then correct yourself, update your information. But if you're promoting something that you know is untrue, then you're subject to laws, libel, slander, etc.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. I'm not a
Hey?
Yeah.
No, carry on. What you were saying? No, it's all right.
I'm not a totalitarian supporter of free speech. I believe that some speech is harmful.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So long as it's not hate speech. I mean, that the whole idea of this podcast is not to create any fear or panic in that. We're just basically generalizing. If we can call it that. We are generalizing, basically.
Absolutely. And fear and panic is a huge side effect of this whole problem, both because of the virus itself and because of the effects and the actions the government's taking.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my question. My question is, how does one overcome the stress and emotional obstacles during this COVID-19 period? And especially when people are posting fake news, it's just not helping. It's not helping at all.
I have some ideas on that. As I said, I'm not qualified in any way. I'm not.
Yes,
I've never done
100%.
a psychology course or anything like
We
that. But
we're just
some,
generalizing, yeah.
yeah, some stuff is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So I'd say there's like 4 main areas that you could do something about to maintain your sanity and your peace of mind. I haven't really thought them through that deeply, but I think you could probably take the basics and come
Yes,
to
yes.
a conclusion.
Yeah,
So
hundreds, yeah.
the first is what you've surrounded yourself with is what you're going to be stuck with. That seems pretty obvious, but people might not consider that. So if you're in an abusive relationship before COVID, it's going to be worse during.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's gonna bring all the flaws out, and things are going to be. If things were bad, things are going to be worse. If things are good, they might still feel worse. But as long as you've got a good relationship, your friends are solid, your spouse or your girlfriend, etc. So keep in contact with your family, with people who support you, who believe in you, who've got good things to say. If you want to hang out now with nutters who believe David Icke at every other turn, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have this shit running around in your head, not knowing what to believe. It's not going to be good for your health.
Yeah.
So pretty much, and following on to that second, what you fill your head with is important. If you spend the next 2 weeks looking for conspiracies of why this isn't real or why this is the end of the world, it's going to go badly for you.
Yeah.
By the same token, you can't just bury your head in the sand and imagine everything's going to be fine. But I think we should be taking notes of how this is affecting us, because it's exposing our weaknesses that were already there.
Yes.
So whether it's our financial security or our political stability, those were already issues. They just really became a problem now. So I think it's a great time for us to pay attention to how things actually work when it comes down to it, when we're at the fucking front line.
Yeah, I tell
things
you,
are either good or not.
I tell you, I had a real emotional experience the day before the lockdown happened. I'm in the security industry. So, of course, yes, I also work with car gods in the shopping center that I work at. And the center management came up with a nice gesture that for each car god, the center manager purchased like a food parcel where it was maize meal, some rice, and some tin food, and some tea and coffee. And I stood there and I called the car gods up. These are car gods that I've worked with for many, many, many years. And I choked. I cracked. I started to cry. And that was the first time in a long time that I actually shedded a tear. It was an emotional, very, very emotional experience. And there was a couple of times as we called, the guards into the office to collect the food parcel. She called me in and she says, "Jason, come stand with me." And I said, I can't. She says, "Jason, come on." She also burst into tears. And while she's, throwing a speech, giving a speech and this is something small from us, from center management, the tears just rolled down and you just can't block yourself, because these are people that live from hand to mouth, it's a daily income that they get. And now we're basically telling them, go home until further notice. You get what I'm saying? Sure.
Yeah, well, that says a lot about you, the fact that you have that kind of empathy. Because in this day and age, we actually can't afford to have as much empathy as we should.
Yes.
There's too much wrong. There's too many people suffering. There's too many people poor and homeless, etc. If we felt everything that we would normally feel for somebody who's in trouble, we'd be completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
The world is, you actually have to contract in times of crisis like this, because there's too much. There's just too much to comprehend and to deal with. I had a similar experience at Spa. I've only been to the shop 3 times since lockdown started. I went to Spa, and as I was leaving, I said to the cashier, "Thank you so much for coming into work. We really appreciate it." And I could see that she was on the verge of tears, because I guess maybe no one had said that to her. Like we all say thank you to the doctors, thank you to the nurses, etc. But nobody's actually appreciating the fact that it's not just work every day as usual for the spa shelf packers and the cashiers. They've got to jump in a taxi. They've got to come to work. You know, they really are at risk of this.
Yeah, no, they are. Yeah.
So I was saying the 4 points. The third one. Wait, now I'm lost.
I lost your train of thought there. Sorry.
So the first one was who you surround yourself with. The second one was the kind of information that you want to fill your head with. I suppose your diet is very important. That would be the third one.
Oh yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
If first of all, now I suddenly remember. So before diet, here we go. Routine. So some people function without routine. That's me. I will wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't really matter as long as I get my work done. I have an abnormal awake cycle. I have a very long attention span, so I can easily go 30 hours before I'm tired. So I never sleep at the same time. I never sleep for the same amount of time. But if you're the kind of person who's got a 9 to 5 and suddenly you're at home 7 days a week, that can really mess with your head.
Yeah.
So there's small things you can do. You make sure you brush your teeth at the same time every day. You know, have meals at the same time every day. Do whatever you can to some semblance of routine. Otherwise, just imagine it's a holiday and, you know, go book. And the last, diet. If you're now at home all day, it's very easy to walk past the cupboard and go, what can I eat? You know, open the fridge, what's there to eat? And you just end up eating for something to do. And you're going to end up eating crap. No one's going to eat healthy food all day. That's just not how it works. And you can actually become quite unhappy when your body goes through such an extreme change. And it would be quite extreme if eating all day is not something you do. Oh, I might join you. It affects your mindset as well as your actual physical happiness.
Yes.
So, who you associate with, what information you're looking at, keep your form some habits, some replacement habits and routines, and don't eat too much crap. That would be my advice to how to maintain your sanity.
No, it's true what you're saying. I saw in the news today that one of the nurses from the hospital, she mentioned that the elderly people, especially, since this COVID-19 is basically, the stats are there, the data is there. It is attacking the elderly people, and you know the poverty in this country, especially, is not that good. So the nutrition is very important. And what are the elderly people eating? And you have to look at your diet. You're right. The vitamins, we need to take in the right vitamins. I know I shared a post the other day. I shared a post on Facebook the other day, and you comment on it, and you said that the information that I shared there was misleading.
You want me to elaborate?
Yeah, elaborate. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Well, there's a kernel of truth behind almost every conspiracy and most of these chain letters that are going around. Now, that particular one, I'd seen the part about the alkaline. You must eat alkaline foods.
Yeah.
It was wrong on multiple counts, but the two obvious ones are they listed citrus fruits. I think four different citrus fruits.
They did, yes, yeah.
Citrus is acid. They're acidic. They're not alkaline foods. So eating limes and lemons, you're not eating anything alkaline. So aside from the fact that they're saying things that are blatantly incorrect, there's some technical and scientific incorrectness there too. The virus has no pH balance, so it's not affected by your. I mean, it is to some degree, but only in levels that are already dangerous to you.
Yeah.
Your body maintains its own pH balance, the lungs and kidneys, and the more acidic your system is, if your organs are working properly, the more acidic your urine is going to be as it balances itself out. So the average is 7.4. If you go up to 7.45 or down to 7.35, you actually end up in acidosis or alkalosis, and if it's untreated, it can actually kill you. So aside from the fact that food can't directly influence your blood pH because your body naturally balances it out, if you could, you would kill yourself. So that whole bit of advice was bullshit, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but this is the scary part. Yeah,
I'll tell you why that's dangerous, just quickly.
go for it, yeah.
Because you may have someone who thinks, I'm going to eat a bunch of lemons. Oh, Lordy. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
You may have someone who thinks, I've eaten some lemons or I've drunk some hot water. I'm cool now I can't get the virus. And then they take risks that they wouldn't otherwise take.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes dangerous.
This is just the thing. I mean, like I mentioned in my question, the emotional and the stress-related concerns, and then we get the fake news, and then we get people posting these type of messages on Facebook and Twitter, wherever, and then people take it to heart and they say, "Well, yeah, okay, cool. Let's go to the chemist now. Let's get this and get the vitamins. Make sure we get enough vitamin D. Stay in the sun for 15 to 20 minutes." And the people are gullible. Whereas if the data is there, like you just mentioned, it's basic common sense. It's there. It's available on the internet. All you need to do is just take the time to research on it. But this is the thing. I don't think people are doing enough research on it. They just checking what's on Facebook and they're going, "Kykie, so hey, my friend said I must take this. I must take this," which is not the fact. And in fact, you're actually causing more harm to yourself than anything else.
Where this whole thing intersects with my life and my interests is that I'm very passionate about education, and it's very obvious that either the education is lacking or people's willingness to take new information in.
Yes.
But they'll read as far as they're interested and not get the whole picture. So it's very easy to be taken in by one of these scammers, the guys who are selling, well, like even who's that crazy InfoWars? What's his name?
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
He's selling products that he's claimed are going to prevent coronavirus. So along with his misinformation, it's here, buy my product. So those are the guys to be aware of. Someone who's just sharing a chain letter, you can say to him, you can try to influence them, but you're not going to influence someone whose agenda is to make money off gullible people.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the education, if you can't think critically, you're not going to be able to look at something and go, this seems a bit dodgy. Let me go and investigate.
Yeah, true. So basically, what can we advise the viewers and listeners out there? What is it? It's like I mentioned, just research. Do the proper research, and of course, the sites. How do you know that you're not looking upon a fake site or a genuine site? This is the catch, because there is so many fake sites out there.
Well, that's a huge question, and I don't think there's an easy answer to it, because
there isn't really. You're right.
There are websites that are designed to look exactly like a legitimate website. So people go to a lot of efforts to portray themselves as being legit. So it's actually quite difficult unless you're familiar with certain brands, or certain voices out there. But you also can't just discount everybody just because of who they are. So say you and I disagree on 60%. I'm not automatically going to dismiss everything you say. Because there's still a chance that you could say something reasonable to me.
Yeah.
So it's a case of look at more than one source, look at more than one idea. Now, let's take David Icke, for example. I had a bit of a debate with my girlfriend because she wanted to watch it to see what information is out there. Whereas I completely dismissed him. I was like, I'm not even listening to this guy's video. It's going to be absolute bullshit. And eventually I did tried to listen to it. But
it was painful.
10 minutes in. 10 minutes, that's all I could do.
Was this the one that I shared to you?
Yeah.
It was painful. It was very painful.
Well, it was twice as painful to me because while he was talking, I had to keep pausing and Googling. And I went through quite a tunnel, like the whole biology and science, viruses, everything. And you know what it comes down to? If at the very starting point you believe the virus is not natural or there's an agenda, everything is going to be unbearable for you. The lockdown is going to be unbearable. The statistics are going to seem fake.
Yeah.
So right at the very first point is where the division happens. And you can still make your mind up at various points, but if you've decided right at the beginning that there is no virus, or that it's caused by 5G, or that this is a plan by 200 plus governments in the world to work together to kill us all,
Yeah.
then there is nowhere logical you can end up after that, because you
Yeah.
can only go further into conspiracy. So trying to disprove the initial assumption is the hardest bit, because that's belief.
Let's look at how many countries are we experiencing that's got the COVID-19? About 180, 184 countries, I read somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere around.
Somewhere around there, where 5G has only been introduced into what, not more than 5?
I think it's 7.
Or seven countries. So how do you debunk that? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Whatever David Icke was trying to say in his video with, what was it, London Real?
London Real.
I don't even know if I want to actually put the link down in my description. Maybe not. Just now YouTube will ban my video. Because look, his video did get banned. Yeah.
Yeah, it has on, I think everybody's banning it, but you can't ban it off his own website. So whether they're going to go a step further and try and get the ISPs themselves to, the web hosts to ban it, I'm not sure. But now I was very much against Alex Jones being banned off these platforms, because as much as I think he's trying to peddle his supplements and whatever, he's running a business, and he's said it's an act, it's entertainment, I'm putting on a show. He's quite openly said that. David Icke is the opposite. Yeah. David Icke is saying the government is lying to you. The virus is not real. He's not pretending to. He's not pretending. He's passing himself off as the absolute truth.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Because look, the 5G conspiracy, it's not conclusive. It's really not conclusive. Yeah.
It's not even, it's far from conclusive. Just the very obvious things, the frequency of whatever signals, the shorter, the higher the frequency, the more dangerous it is. So light is more powerful than 5G. This monitor is causing more radiation than 5G would. And it's just that simple. So we are constantly bombarded by the sun, by various electronic devices. So there's just no, And then you've got all these Reiki guys who are saying, okay, this frequency of energy that I'm giving you is going to heal your kidneys. So how, I don't know.
No, I know. So you just can't wrap
it. It actually just doesn't make sense, Yeah,
because from time to time, people like sending these messages out via WhatsApp, and they say that 12 o'clock at night, you must make sure that your data is off on your phone. Some frequency wave will come and give you cancer. I mean, it's absolutely a hogwash. It's hogwash.
Look, the tests that I've read anyway, the tests that they've done, the studies, they are exposing rats. I mean, all the tests have been done on rats and mice mostly, not on people. They're exposing them to mega doses of radiation, of EMF frequencies. So if you made your bed on top of a 5G tower, and that's where you slept 24 hours a day, yes, you probably would experience some effect. But we don't live there.
No, we don't.
So
exactly.
In fact, the signal is so weak, that's why they need so many towers. So the further, unless you're right up in the business, you're good.
Yeah. No,
I mean, and then there's all these competing and incompatible theories that all the animals are coming back now that we've shut down the factories. Why aren't they running away from this deadly 5G? Like, come on, either they're coming back or we're killing them. You can't have both at the same time.
No, true. My second question: How does this pandemic compare with previous pandemics the world has experienced? The last one, I think the 1918 one. Was it the Spanish flu?
that was the biggest one.
That was the
in
biggest
recent
one.
history, yeah.
What was the figures? I'm getting 50 million. I've listened to some
60
podcasts.
There's estimates somewhere between 30 and 80. So
30,
60
30 and 80 million.
conservative.
That was a serious one. Was this the same time that Alexander Fleming invented penicillin? It was more or less in that era, wasn't it? Alexander
That's a
Fleming.
good question. I actually don't
I
know
think it was.
exactly when.
I wanted to read up on it. I remember Alexander Fleming. But it was by chance. His nose bled, and he had a sample of the virus, and his nose bled. And some of his blood fell into a sample, and within a couple of days, it turned into MIF, which is penicillin.
No,
And it killed the
penicillin
virus.
was invented 10 years after that plague.
Was it 10 years after
1928.
that? So it was after. So it wasn't the same era.
Yeah.
That pandemic, yeah, that one was hectic.
Well, you have to think of it. If you took that disease, I don't know whether to call it virus, disease, pandemic, whatever, let's call it pandemic. If you took that pandemic and put it overlaid over our current modern world, there's a bunch of things that would happen differently. For one, there's more people, there's more travel, planes, trains, whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you think about that disease infected 60 million people in those days, imagine how far and wide it could spread today. But on the other hand, we have better technology. We're more aware, more people are educated. I mean, how many people in 1917 knew what a virus was?
Mm-hmm.
So it could either have been a lot worse or not even close to as bad, because we have better hygiene, we've got better sanitation. So it's an interesting thought, and really you can't know unless it happens. And this could very well be the same thing.
Yeah.
But if you compare it to, I'm not going to look at figures, I'm trying to remember. If you compare it to recent outbreaks, some of which have been called pandemics, in fact, a lot of these denialists or conspiracy guys compare death rates, etc., with N1H1, etc., and SARS. Yes. Those are fallacious comparisons, because all of those pandemics are over. You've got the data. You know how many people were infected. So if you say SARS killed 12% of people, and Ebola killed 40% of people, whatever it was, those are more dangerous. That's not correct. First of all, we don't have all the data. We haven't even hit the peak of this pandemic yet.
Yeah, true.
So it's an illogical and irrational argument to compare something that hasn't even gotten started yet with something that's already finished. At the end of the day, we'll be able to compare them, and then you're either going to be right or wrong and say, it was as bad as we thought, it wasn't as bad as we thought. So the only rational choice is to act as though it is as bad as they think.
Yeah.
Because would you rather be unnecessarily safe or unnecessarily at risk?
Yeah. Look, in my position, I'm classed as an essential worker. Like I mentioned, in the security industry, so I got to go out there, and I'm putting my life at risk. I know, and I'm also putting my family's life at risk. But I am taking the precautions. I am doing what the government's saying, washing my hands, and I'm wearing a mask. But there's also different theories about those gloves and masks, and some people are saying it's worse. It's not really safe. Again, coming to back what I said about the fake news, and that you don't know who to listen to. Yeah.
Well, there's pretty good information about both masks and gloves, and most of it comes down to common sense, provided you understand how things work in a general sense. So the N95 masks, the ones with the actual filter, those are the ones that the medical profession should be using, because they're not only exposed to COVID, they're exposed to all kinds of things. Working with patients. I mean, you see someone, you don't know what they've got before you treat them. They could have something highly contagious. So they use proper effective masks. So maybe it's only 90% effective, but they're also taking other precautions. Somebody who's got an N95 mask is pretty safe, but we can't get them as citizens. In fact, we shouldn't. because there aren't enough of them. And if you're wearing it to go to spa, rather than a doctor who's going into surgery, then something's wrong with that equation.
Yeah, no.
But the idea of a normal mask, whether it's a cloth one of those little surgical masks, whatever, is not to prevent you from getting it, but to prevent you from spreading it.
Yeah, from spreading it. That's what I also heard.
Yes.
Yeah, from spreading it. Yeah.
So, and the main reason is you're going to cough, and most of it's going to be caught and collected in your mask.
Yes.
But it doesn't prevent you from breathing in through the sides. Those are tiny little molecules. So it's not 100% effective, or it's probably 60% if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And then the gloves, the problem with the gloves are the gloves in and of themselves don't stop the virus from doing anything. The virus is not going to die because it's on the gloves. So eventually you're going to either touch something else and deposit some of the virus there, or, so all you're doing is carrying it around in a different medium. If it's on your hands, you're probably going to be more cautious with what you touch.
Yeah, true.
Being more cautious is a better option than falsely thinking I'm safe because I'm wearing gloves. Because you're still going to spread around. If you pick up a Coke and then you take off your gloves and you pick up the Coke again, you're just going to reacquire that the virus.
Yeah. Well, look, this is a learning curve for us. I mean, it's the first time we actually experiencing a pandemic. Although we had AIDS and Ebola and the swine flu and that, but it never really took off as what this virus is, or pandemic actually. The lockdown. Do you agree with it?
In principle.
In principle.
The problem is, in practice, it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
You've got people who are just too poor to sit for 21 or 30 days, or however long it's going to turn out to be. You've got military officers who are not trained to deal with civilians who are being heavy-handed. You've got business that's going to crash because in practice, it's a very difficult thing. And then you have to have a set of hierarchies. What is more important to me? Unfortunately, we don't get to make those choices individually.
Yeah.
That choice is being made collectively by the government. I'd like to believe they're being advised by the very best people. So as much as I'm quite outspoken about the corruption and the ineptness of the ANC, I'm not an ANC fan. I've never voted for them. I never will.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they can never be right. So now they're actually taking good advice opposed to what they normally do, which is to ignore anything that seems like good advice. So you can't automatically just dismiss the choices that are being made because the ANC is doing it. That's what I said earlier. Anybody's got the chance to be right. You have to assess everything on individual merit. So the principle of the lockdown, I'm 100% for it. We need to stop this thing. It may not kill you, but it might kill somebody you don't know who's older, or got a chest infection, or we're both smokers. So
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I bet a lot of the viewers and listeners out there, okay, well, not the listeners, but the viewers, I bet they're saying, look, and you guys are talking about this, but look, you're smoking.
Well, the thing is, I have been very careful. It's been easy for me because my life is, as I said, not changed that much. But when I go out, I wear a mask. I wipe all my food down. I take everything out of packets, boxes, put them into
I do the same.
Pyrex.
Yeah, with sanitizer.
So one thing you've got to be aware of, and I'm not sure how many people know this, the virus can survive for up to 3 weeks inside your fridge. It's the perfect environment for it.
But
So
this is the thing.
If you buy a 2-liter Coke and
Yeah.
you don't wipe it down and it's got some virus in it, and you put it in your fridge, that virus will be transmissible and active for up to 3 weeks. I mean, some data, it varies, but on the God.
Yeah, we know that much. The virus lives in very cold conditions.
Prefers cold, yeah.
It prefers cold.
But that's not to say that heat will kill it. It may just lessen the amount of time it can spend outside the body or on surfaces, etc. And apparently harder surfaces are better for the virus. So plastic, glass, steel.
Wood,
It has a
steel,
long,
yeah,
yeah,
true.
on
Scary.
cloth and
But it is.
hair.
My argument is okay. The lockdown now. Okay, for us now, that's it's educated and we're informing ourselves on what this virus can do. We have to sanitize it. Not everybody, especially in rural areas and in townships, they don't have the access that we have with for sanitizers and that. Yes, I know
Not
government's been
even
doing a lot. They've been going out there, putting a lot of JoJo tanks and giving out soap because we know that the virus is a fatty substance. So yeah, wash your hands regularly so it can break down the fat, in the virus.
it's not all soaps.
Not all soaps, eh?
Generally, it's got to have. Yeah, there's certain. I mean, you get these. I don't even know what you call them. These eco soaps or whatever, and they're missing some of the active ingredients that generally soap has.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the ability to break down oils and fatty acids. I mean, you look at sunlight liquid. If you have a pan that's got oil in it, and as soon as you put some sunlight in, you can
Of
see
course.
the oil. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think most people have access to sunlight, or so you don't need
I'm concerned for the
alcohol-based
people.
one.
I'm concerned for the people that don't have it, and this is probably why, the lockdown, so that we can contain it. And I think we're doing a good job. I mean, the stats are there, the figures are there. I don't know how true it is, but the figures are looking quite good if you compare to America and Italy.
Yeah, that's one of my. That is one of the things that I'm really suspicious about of those figures. Because on the very first day of the lockdown, we went from an average of a 40% infection growth rate to 4% or 3%.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the face of it, that doesn't make sense because the virus has got to take 4 or 5 days to spread before you get symptoms. Then you've got to get tested. So, there's probably a 7 to 10 day window between when you actually get it and when you get diagnosed as having it. So, that shouldn't have happened on the first day of the lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
That we should see a drop in the numbers.
No,
it doesn't make sense. It should happen
course.
10 days later. However, my girlfriend's business, they on that Monday before the lockdown, they had one walk-in customer, and they had 96% less turnover.
Yes.
So people were isolating. People were not going out of their own accord long before the lockdown. So there is the potential that the effects of the lockdown started up to a week before it became official.
Yes.
So I could convince myself that there's something there, but I remain very skeptical about our numbers. I think it's not enough testing has happened.
Well, on that subject that you spoke about, what will the outcome be once the world overcomes this pandemic, and how long will the world take to restart its economics? The trade and business. There's been various podcasts. I mean, Morning Shot, Robin Kaepernick and Ronaldo and that German, they've all had podcasts on regarding the economics, and flip, it's scary.
Well, I won't even comment on the economy side of things. I've got no idea how long or how well we recover. What I will say is I actually see this from a completely different perspective to most people. I think, in fact, it goes counter to most of the conspiracy theories. If you think one of the theories is China started this to screw up the world stock markets and
that's the theory that's going around. Yeah, that's right.
Think about it logically for a second. It's going to have the opposite effect. Everyone is going to go, fuck, look how dependent we are on China. We need to fix that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think it's going to shine such a spotlight on every crack in every system.
Big time.
If you thought you were doing okay, now how are you doing if you can't work for a month? Suddenly you realize, I don't have the right insurance, I don't have the right backup, I don't have the right systems in place. So I think this virus is going to wake us up. We've been in a passive state for far too long, since World War II. I mean, what's it been, 75 years since we had something of this magnitude. I think that this is a wake-up call. We've become far too trusting in everything, trusting in our government, trusting in our systems, trusting in our, that everything's going to be okay, because clearly it's quite easy for things not to be okay. And as soon as it's out of your control, no one individually can stop this virus.
Yeah.
Only everyone together. And we're not a together species at all.
No.
Every step we take, we're looking for ways to separate ourselves from other people. Are you a communist? Are you a capitalist? Are you he, she, it?
Yeah.
There's so many. What religion do you follow? Do you like Manchester United? We find ways to divide ourselves up until we get a small, manageable group. But if you keep dividing, eventually you're going to end up with just yourself.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything on your own. You belong to a system. You're in a society, and we actually need to. So this is not an argument for socialism. This is not a political argument that I'm making here at all.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to put forward any kind of we need less capitalism or anything like that. What we need to do is look at how we prepare ourselves to deal with bad things. We can't just assume that there's going to be a pill or a vaccine or a stimulus package that's going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
And the ANC, we need to be looking really closely at them and taking notes, because right now isn't the time to take a stand.
Mhm.
There's nothing you could do. You can't go on a march. You can't storm their branches. Like, you can go out, you'll probably get arrested, and then you're going to have a really
Of course,
bad
yes.
time.
Yeah, of course, yes.
If you thought it was bad being at home locked down, it's going to be a lot worse in jail. So
Yeah.
all those people who want that civil unrest, by all means, just not right now. All you're
Yeah.
going to do is cause more trouble. But take notes, pay attention, and at the end of this, we need to make a concerted effort together to reform things.
After the president announced we're going in for another 2 weeks, Shame, I spoke to one of my friends and she told me straight, her and her fiance's business, they're going to have to shut the doors down and then afterwards try and sell their house, just to get back on their feet. That's the scary part. And I think after the shutdown, we're probably going to see that a lot. A lot of small businesses are not going to open their doors. Yes, of course, there is applications that you can fill, the SME that the government's, but a lot of people just can't get clearance on it because of what the government has said, what needs to be done, and the steps that needs to be followed. So yeah, they're going to lose. They're going to lose their businesses.
That's going to be a very common story. And unfortunately, as much as I tried to point out it wasn't the case, we've had some very intrepid ANC members declining applications because they were white-owned businesses.
A lot was declined. A lot, yeah.
Yeah, on paper that wasn't supposed to happen, but like I said, the difference between the idea and the implementation, when it comes to the ANC, it's chalk and cheese. So you've got rogue elements. I'm sure if you ask Cyril personally, and if he was the one who was signing the papers, you might get a degree of fairness. And a lot of people have jumped on this bandwagon, saying this is the perfect way to eliminate white business, because only black business is going to be supported and brought through this. But ultimately, what I've said twice now already, how successful and how stable was your business if it can't survive a month?
Yeah.
So I feel the same way about democracy. If someone says this virus is going to kill our democracy, it wasn't a democracy if it can be destroyed in 3 weeks. And if you're now going to get divorced from your wife because of 3 weeks of lockdown, there were already problems in your marriage before. So it's an accelerant.
And this is the emotional stress that people are dealing with right now as we speak.
So it's going to make everything bad worse. So you can't just blame everything on COVID. It would be nice if everybody got equal assistance from the government, but that's a pretty socialist ideal. And we don't buy into that on the whole as average South Africans, especially people who are in business, who are the very people who need the bailout. So you see the catch-22 there. When things are bad, socialism starts to look a little bit better, because you could go, okay, I'm die hard, I believe in my principles, no matter what happens. Okay, you're going to lose your business. Maybe you've got the chutzpah to start again, but maybe you don't. So I, I'm. I have ferocious arguments against socialists. I just don't do it on the ZACP forums because
Yeah.
no one there's a socialist, and I don't see the value in taking away the aspiration to make money, to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you start redistributing or distributing ownership or wealth, you're taking away incentive. And I think I have no incentive to do more than I need to do, and most of the time I only do what I need to do. So I would prefer to have goals, deadlines. I work much better like that. So I'm both for and against government assisting us. We cannot afford a complete economic meltdown because 3,000 businesses close.
Yeah.
So there should be some assistance for them. But where does that end? Are we inviting in an era of socialism next year? So I don't know what the government can do to fix it. I think we need to commit.
Well, that's my next question. My next question is, let's talk solutions. Next, how can government put in place systems that can kickstart the world back to its glory days? And this is the part where you like. I mean, let's emphasize a lot here on education for one. I'm also big on education, and in a lot of my podcast and last week on the Discord channel we were talking about, and I mentioned that on my previous podcast, reform programs on education has not been pumped enough into rural areas in it. And I think now after this, they should.
Well, the first question, what can government do to kickstart the economy? Nothing. I don't think this government can do anything. They spent 20 years looting the country. So as much as they might have plans and meetings, incentives and councils, they literally aren't in a position to do anything.
But that shouldn't be a dead end. That shouldn't be a dead end for us individuals out there. We can actually kickstart the economy.
What they need to do is deregulate. They need to deregulate. They need to make it easier to open a business, to run a business.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So I don't believe in rampant, I think you call them NCAPs. I don't even know.
NCAPs, yeah.
Anarchy. Yeah. I'm not a subscriber of that. I think that there need to be some ethics in business. I think you can't just run wild. But I don't think that you need to punish successful people just because there are other people who, I mean, some people just frankly made bad choices. Okay. Then you get people who lightning struck their house. I mean, what the fuck do you do when your house burns down around you?
Yes.
It's not your fault. So, and that actually is another aspect that I was just thinking about, dealing with the emotional stress of this. There's nothing that you could have done to prevent it. So you need to, if your business is suffering, had you made a bad choice, you could try to correct it. But there's no course of correction here. Yeah. You need to actually this is an act of God, whether you believe in God or not. This is the definition I'm going to choose to use.
I do, yeah.
This is an act of God. It's beyond your control. You're an insignificant, tiny little speck in the grand scheme of things. Maybe zoom in a bit so that you're not looking at this huge catastrophe and think, what can I do about this? What can I do about that? Steps that you can actually take. But I don't think we should be betting on the ANC fixing a whole lot, not without complete reform.
Yeah, of course, and this is it. We need to support each other with this regard. Facebook, for one, is just not making anything any better because people out there are ranting and raving. They're cursing the government. And yeah, you know how a libertarian would think. The libertarians watching this are probably going to curse me now. But of course, they rant and rave. And I tried to, on this one Facebook group that I'm an admin on it. And I said, guys, please, we cannot throw insults here. And that what we need here is to put our heads together, share some ideas. I'm open. I wrote them, open for suggestions. Leave a comment below. Maybe there's someone in the group that can actually turn those ideas into a reality. How do you feel about
Didn't go
that?
down well. Well,
No, I didn't. Yeah, a couple of guys swore at me. One guy said, "Fuck off and delete this post."
well, I get called a communist religiously on ZACP, for example, not because I've ever said anything communist, but just because I've said there is a time where state action is required.
Yeah.
So we have a majority of uneducated people in this country. I'd say 60% of people in this country don't know what a virus actually is.
Yeah.
And even if they did, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't be able. They wouldn't have the means to go on Google and see what can I do about it myself. How can I, without relying on state misinformation or information, whichever way you want to look at it. So, education is probably the solution to 99% of our problems.
Thank you.
But it's not a quick solution at all.
I know
You're
it's not.
talking
It's
one or
going to
two
take time.
generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people who are in power are going to hold on to power for as long as they've got. And slowly, as they die off or retire, a younger generation of educated people. Now, I'm not talking about you've learned your 2 times table and the history of South Africa. I'm talking about you've been taught how to think,
Yes.
how to question, how to come up with to compare 2 things and say, this is likely, this is unlikely.
Yes.
And that isn't taught on the whole in our schools. If you're not a thinker, people say you're just stupid.
Or a philosopher.
Yeah, or a philosopher.
Yeah.
So we need to fundamentally change education across the world, but we'll stick with South Africa for now. And we need to teach things that aren't maths, science, accounting, as important as they are.
Well, economics for us not exactly maths. It's like you just said. It teaches you how to think and how to work with your money, how to budget.
Well, things that we take for granted because we can Google or because we got taught, knowing your rights as a citizen, knowing what the ANC's rights are as a political party.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of people who vote for the ANC don't even understand how badly the ANC has performed.
Yeah.
They have no measurement. They've got no, here's the bar and look where the ANC is. There is no bar for them. There's just the ANC.
Yeah.
So both education and paying attention to all the cracks, all the failures in our systems, and putting that all together afterwards and mounting some form of concerted effort for reform in this country. Because I strongly feel, I won't say believe, because I could have my mind changed quite easily, that the only solution for us politically in this country is to reform the ANC. I don't think we have the means to replace them. I don't think there's anybody who could, in the next 15 years, replace the ANC, unless this becomes a catastrophe of epic proportions.
Yeah, true. A lot of the economics out there and economics analysts, they're saying this could be either good or bad. But yeah, I think more and more people are saying that this could be a bad thing for the ANC. Are people gonna get woke?
Well, I listened quite carefully to the president's speech last night, and I agreed with everything that was said. I don't know that he agrees with everything that was said. I don't think he wrote that speech himself, and I don't know how strongly or strictly we can hold the party to everything that he said. But one thing that I drastically disagreed on was this African fund that they want to set up. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the time for nationalism. This is the time to do what you can to protect your own citizens. We have no say over the policies that Zimbabwe is going to implement.
Yeah.
So why should we bear any cost for the repercussions of whatever they decide to do? I don't agree with that at all. I think not many of us can imagine coming out of this, intact. So why should we also be expected to pay for somebody else? I disagree with that quite strongly. But he did seem to indicate that the party was. I'm worried there is a vehicle to be hijacked in this. He's saying there must be reforms like root level reforms, but are they going to take that compensation, land without compensation route? Is that their idea of reform, or they're actually looking at themselves and reform what they've been doing wrong for the next?
Well, if you read what the NDR is saying in their memos, it's basically happening. What the NDR wants, I think we're experiencing it.
I don't have enough background in this subject. I think primarily the people who are going to suffer from having their land taken away are going to be the poor.
Yeah.
And the majority of poor people are black. I think white people who own land can also afford lawyers. So there's going to be a disproportionate price to be paid by the poor people, as it always is. Always the poor always pay the most.
True.
They have rights, but they can't protect their rights. They don't have the means. They don't have the education. So once again, it comes back to education. If everybody is able to read a news article and actually understand the concepts and not just the story, then you're going to get a greater understanding of what's going on. You're going to see, okay, this is absolutely no good. That needs to change. So yeah, education. But we've got to get through this first. And the only way to get through this, first of all, don't break the law. Because if you break the law, things are immediately going to get worse for you. Immediately. Yes. There's no question. If you're going to get beaten down by some cops or thrown into jail, you are not going to be better off than you were before.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think that liberty is an ally of COVID-19. I think that freedom is the best mechanism of transmission. The more free you are, the more people you're going to infect. It's just 101.
I'm with you. Yeah.
So we haven't been asked to sacrifice very much over the last 75 years. If you compare what people were asked to sacrifice in World War II, 5 years overseas, living in trenches, fighting. What have we been asked to?
Since World War II, we are experiencing the best times of our lives. Gareth Cliff, he said this in a podcast with Ronaldo House. We're experiencing the best time of our lives. We never had what we had back 75 years ago.
Yeah.
All that's got to take into consideration, of course.
So, and that comes down to having a hierarchy of needs, of what's important to you. So when things are going well, freedom's right on top. Freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of whatever you want, right? But when things are bad, you need to be able to look at your circumstances and adjust. Say, okay, right now, staying alive is the most important thing. So freedom is going to take a back seat until, okay, we're all alive. Well, some of us are alive, hopefully more than 85%. Let's now make...
Sorry.
No problem. Let's make some structural changes to the way we do things. But that's not the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing you should be planning now, organizing. There's nothing stopping you from starting a group and enlisting people. But taking action or inciting people to take action that breaks the law right now, I can't condone that. It's self-defeating.
True. Lastly, what would you do when the lockdown is over? I've got some pictures here. You're going to see it after the podcast. I've got pictures of a lady doing shopping, and I put a picture of KFC.
Okay. What am I going to do after the lockdown? Not much that's different, except I think... So the part of my background I didn't get into, which, if you don't mind, I want to go into a little bit of detail here. I worked for a startup which started in 2015. Our goal was very simple. We wanted to bring free, modern education to every rural area in South Africa. So it's free for the end user, not free to implement, obviously. So we were in talks with people for a long time, Samsung, FNB, big companies, because basically it costs between 10 and 15,000 Rand per deployment. So I worked with China to develop a small, about this big server, which could run an e-learning course, which we could put whatever we wanted on there. And we started with a TB and HIV awareness course, how it's transmitted, what you can do, do the drugs that they give you work, etc. And it got implemented in, I think, 6 large mines and 42 schools. So I'm sure you know the mining sector. Mining sector is unskilled labor, mostly uneducated as well. They don't know anything about, no medical knowledge. So educating those guys on TB and HIV is a big focus for much of the corporate responsibility investment. So we built this course, we implemented it, it went down really well. But the CEO then died in a diving accident in Mozambique. And unfortunately, he was the point man. He was the networker. His family is in education, and they have been for generations. So he was the one who organized the schools. He had connections in the mining industry. So pretty much the whole thing fell flat before we got the big sponsor.
But it sounds awesome.
It's still possible, but I'm not the guy to go out and sell it. I'm just the technical guy who knows how it can be done. I'm sure many people know how it can be done, but I was involved.
Yeah.
And that is something that I want to try to pursue after this, because right now I'm seeing firsthand the effects of a lack of education on a population.
Yes.
And it's dangerous. People are... If we had a system where we could send a message to the person in the furthest village, how helpful would that be right now, to show them a video of what to do, what to do to try and combat this virus? We don't have anything like that. And if at the same time you could teach people how to open a bank account, what their civil rights are, not just maths and science, but life orientation, how to, when you finish school, to actually be a productive member of society already. You know how to get a job, how to...
Thank you. Hundreds. Yeah, hundreds. And that's what we need.
But I think I'm going to try and pursue that. I've got some interested parties, but...
Yeah, we desperately need that. And that's the type of reform program that I'm talking about. That's exactly it. What you just said there, 100%.
You cannot involve the government, because now this, I'm straying a bit into conspiracy land here, but in my opinion, the ANC depends on the majority being uneducated, because that's where their votes come from.
I've said it, and a lot of us on the social media groups that we're on will agree 100% with you. Yeah, 100%.
So we enrolled a bunch of very qualified teachers. They wrote us syllabuses and courses, science, maths, everything. The government shut us down like a ton of bricks.
Of course.
So
of course they would.
We had to retract all of our stuff that was contained in the current school curriculum. So we could only teach basically life orientation stuff. But even then, there's still more than enough education to make this project viable.
I don't think life will go back to normal straight away.
No.
What I'm worried about, and coming to the pictures that I've put here on my OBS, that's the first thing that the majority of the people are going to do, especially the youth. They're going to go back to nightclubs, go back to pubs. That's not something that we want to happen straight away, do we?
Well, no. There's a lot of speculation that this is going to become the same as the seasonal flu, where it's going to hang around pretty much forever, infecting people until, I mean, there's a majority, not a majority, there's a large number of people who won't get a vaccine even if there is one, because they're anti-vaxxers, conspiracies, whatever. So we're never going to kill this thing dead. It's going to come back over and over and over again. So yeah, I think anyone who isn't willing to update their model of the world to this is the new reality we're living in, could either cause some harm or suffer some harm. But we can't sacrifice our way of life for fear of a virus. We can't.
Yeah.
So I'm for a short lockdown period to try to get a handle on this thing, buy people more time to whatever. But I will fight tooth and nail against extended powers, or so people need the freedom to go to those nightclubs, bars. I mean, it's their choice. Unfortunately, they can go home and infect someone who didn't make that choice, who chose to stay at home.
That's the thing. And then it's like this lockdown was all for nothing.
Yes.
That's the scary part.
So that is the resurgence fear. If we ended it, I mean, Cyril went and I extended it for another 2 weeks. But there was never a chance that he wasn't going to do that.
And we all had that fear,
until we were getting 0 new infections, you got to lock down. So South Africa, the practicality of the situation means we can't keep indefinitely postponing the end of the lockdown.
Yeah.
There is a hard cap to how much the country can take before it just collapses. Is that point going to arrive before we've made a difference? That depends on how people behave during the lockdown. If you go out and spread the disease now, you're making it less likely that we survive as a country. So
Italy is now what, 2 months into the lockdown? Is it 2 months?
Sure.
I think it's 2 months.
I think they're near the end of their second month, aren't they?
Yeah. I
think they were 2 weeks before us, weren't they?
No, well, longer.
Sure?
I forgot now. I'm reading so many things.
Time has been very strange during this whole thing. I haven't paid attention to the exact dates. All I know is that Italy didn't take it seriously.
No, they didn't. And as well as the States didn't take it that serious.
Yeah. There's an argument to be made for not panicking. Right? Panic is no good.
Yeah,
however, there's a reality to be faced that if you don't take precautions early, you end up in a situation where your only option left is panic. Panic is a motivator. No one's saying run around like a headless chicken, but panic should induce you to take desperate measures. So as long as the longer we can put off panic, the better. So the more rational, the more sensible your decisions are.
Funny that you should say that. I've always said this before. The human being, we are strange creatures. We perform better when we're under constant stress. We perform better. I know from experience. I've worked in the retail. I was a store manager for Checkers many years ago, and when you get a call that the MD is coming to visit, so you stress and you run around like a loose chicken, but you get the job done.
Well, the thing is that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
First of all, our psychology, we're fragile creatures, whether we think so or not. That's why soldiers come home with PTSD. They're at heightened peak performance in moments of intense fear or motivation, but you can't maintain that. So our soldiers are out there too long, they come back with PT. Same thing's going to happen if we're under this fear of this virus for too long. We're going to crack, and then you're going to make mistakes. So there's the initial boost, adrenaline, you perform well, but then you crash. So being under that stress for too long is far more detrimental than not being under the stress at all.
Yeah, true.
And that is the argument against the lockdown, or against the panic.
Yeah.
But I've never advised anyone to panic. I started saying a month before it even arrived here, I was saying to people, when you go to the shop, buy a little bit extra, so that something that you can put in the cupboard. And people are, you're promoting panic, you're promoting fear. I'm like, I'm doing the opposite. So oh man. The problem is people are so different. People are so different.
It happened in the 90s. Do you remember when ANC took over? I remember, I was my teens, my early teens in the 90s, probably 15 or 14. And my dad one night, he came home and stocked up the cupboards. And I'm like, Dad, what's going on? Why are you stocking up the cupboards? No, the ANC's taking over. We need to stock up. My neighbor, my friend told me we need to stock up. And what happened? Absolutely nothing.
I'll tell you what did happen. I was working at a nightclub called Sand Pebbles in Durban at the time. And the night the ANC got elected, I walked home and the little, the entrances to the stores, shops, or whatever, it was like 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Same homeless people were sleeping in the same spots. The country did not change at all for the poor people when the ANC took over. That's the only thing that changed is who's in the top 1%. We just switched it up a little bit.
True.
So those people need education, they need opportunities, and the only way they're going to make anything of any opportunities you give them is with education. And the only way that education is going to happen in this country is if the ANC is reformed. The only way the ANC is going to be reformed is if we all get together. So I think people should be taking notes. At the end of this, we need things to change.
Of course we do. It's like I said, we need to put our heads together. But there's certain people that they won't agree to everything we say. But I know there is a lot of people out there that will. And I know it's easy to say not to stress and panic in it. I know. But it's mind over matter. I believe in mind over matter. If you just put your mind to it, you can. You can conquer it.
If you find yourself stressing, you can't sleep, whatever, distract yourself. Just play a game, watch a movie, read a book.
You a gamer. I mean, you spoke about it the other night.
So I have 2 modes of working. One is I'm super focused. I will actually sit down for 6 to 8 hours. I won't even get up. I just focus completely. And the other is I will do everything except my work, but in the back of my head, it's processing. Because I don't have a solution. So I'm trusting on my, innate intelligence problem solving to solve it for me without me having to sit there and grind at it. Because I do a lot of creative work, and you can't just say, okay, I'm going to solve this problem now if it's a creative problem.
True.
That kind of has to come to you. So if you're having a really hard time, distract yourself. You can't. You just, like I said, you can't maintain that level of stress indefinitely.
Well, I'm distracting myself with this gin and Sprite.
Now that's another thing about this lockdown that they really, hands down. I mean, you want the country to comply. The last thing you should do is ban alcohol and cigarettes.
Yeah.
You've got instantly 60% of the people on the verge of non-compliance simply because you banned alcohol and cigarettes. That's not helping your cause in any way. There's no logical argument whatsoever for a shop like Spa, which is already selling food, to not sell cigarettes and light bulbs. There's no argument for it whatsoever. So, I think they fucked up. I think it might be a week or so, but they'll correct that. But certainly, I don't have enough cigarettes to get me through the extra 2 weeks.
Should we say earlier before we did the podcast, you spoke about that bottle of wine you got? Should we do it?
Yeah.
Should we tell the viewers out there?
So, I don't drink, but I have this bottle of Boekenoot's Kloof Cabernet Sauvignon 2017. It's a really good bottle of wine. I won it at a quiz at Boekenoot's Kloof. Yeah. And I would like to give this to a deserving alcoholic drinker. You don't have to be an alcoholic. So if you could think of any good reason to give away this bottle of wine, I would like somebody to have it.
Is it going to be a conspiracy? We're going to give it to the best conspiracy.
Best conspiracy. How about how do you judge the best conspiracy? That would be a...
I'll leave that to you. I mean, we can tell the viewers you can leave your comment down below, and then I'll view the comments, and I'll just forward to you, and then you can choose. You can choose
the most entertaining conspiracy theory for COVID-19.
There we go.
Just don't post it publicly. That would be a crime currently in South Africa. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So then we're not going to do it on my YouTube then. I think what I'll do is I'll drop in my email address, and then people can just email me the conspiracy. Yeah, and then that way I can forward it to you.
There we go.
Do that, yeah. I think that would be safer. Yeah.
I don't have the time to go and find every conspiracy theory out there, so it would be quite handy for them all to arrive in my inbox at once.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's it. Skye, it's been awesome.
Really as scary as I thought.
Nah, not really. I mean, of course, there was a lot of things that I wanted to speak about, but yeah, those prior ears it there, and they might report me and you to the police and then say, Jason and Sky are speaking a lot of cuck.
Well, as long as we're not in a state of emergency yet,
Yeah.
so we still have most of our rights. The one thing that we don't have is the right to lie about COVID-19 specifically,
Exactly.
and the right to go wherever we want when we want. But
Exactly.
we still have the rest of our rights. So the more you behave, the longer we're going to keep them. So.
Yeah, true. Eh? All right, don't go. I just want to give my closing, and then we can say our goodbyes after that. Okay, Sky, thank you. Thank you again. Thanks for joining my podcast, Conscious Debriefing podcast. My podcast is available on YouTube, BitTude, which is the preferable channel because your uploads don't get banned like on YouTube. Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and yeah. Thank you, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.